Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Thira Panachari. Jamuna Thira Panachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayom Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajakaacharya Astho Tadasata Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Acharya, Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajakaacharya Astho Tadasata Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananti Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanand Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Gidi Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Sri Dwarka Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Nudwarka Ki Jai. Gangamayi Ki Jai. Yamunamayi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tato darsha Bhagavan Ashoka vanikashrame Kshamam swa virahavyadhim Simsapa mulamashritam. Tato darsha Bhagavan Ashoka vanikasrame Shamam svavirahavyadhim Simshapa mulamashritam. Tato dadarsha Bhagavan Ashoka vanikashrame Shamam svavirahavyadhim Simshapa mulamashritam. Ladies, ladies, Tadarsha saw Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ashokavanik Ashrame, in a small cottage in the forest of Ashok trees. Shamam, very lean and thin. Swavirahavyadhim, suffering from the disease of separation from Lord Ramchandra. Shimshapa, of the tree known Shimshapa. Mulam, the root. Ashritam, taking shelter of. Thereafter Lord Ramchandra found Sita Devi sitting in a small cottage beneath the tree named Shimshapa in a forest of Ashok trees. She was lean and thin, being aggrieved because of separation from him. Seeing his wife in that condition, Lord Ramchandra was very compassionate. When Ramchandra came before her, she was exceedingly happy to see her beloved, and her lotus-like mouth showed her joy. After giving Vibhishan the power to rule the Rakshasa population of Lanka for the duration of one kalpa, Lord Ramchandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Bhagavan, placed Sita Devi on an airplane decorated with flowers and then got on the plane himself. The period for his living in the forest having ended, the Lord returned to Ayodhya, accompanied by Hanuman, Sugriva, and his brother Lakshman. When Lord Ramachandra returned to his capital, Ayodhya, he was greeted on the road by the princely order, who showered his body with beautiful, fragrant flowers, while great personalities like Lord Brahma and other demigods glorify the activities of the Lord in great jubilation. Upon reaching Ayodhya, Lord Ramchandra heard that in his absence, his brother Bharat was eating barley cooked in the urine of a cow, covering his body with the bark of trees, wearing matted locks of hair, and lying on a mattress of kusha grass. The most merciful Lord very much lamented this. When Lord Bharat understood that Lord Ramchandra was returning to the capital Ayodhya, he immediately took upon his head Lord Ramchandra's wooden shoes and came out from his camp at Nandigram. Lord Bharat was accompanied by ministers, priests, and other respectable citizens, by professional musicians vibrating pleasing musical sounds, and by learned Brahmins loudly chanting Vedic hymns. Following in the procession were chariots drawn by beautiful horses with harnesses of golden rope. These chariots were decorated by flags with golden embroidery and by other flags of various sizes and patterns. There were soldiers bedecked with golden armor, servants bearing betel nut, and many well-known and beautiful prostitutes. Many servants followed on foot, bearing an umbrella, whisks, different grades of precious jewels, and other paraphernalia befitting a royal reception. accompanied in this way Lord Bharat, his heart softened in ecstasy and his eyes full of tears, approached Lord Ramchandra and fell at his lotus feet with great ecstatic love. After offering the wooden shoes before Lord Ramchandra, Lord Bharat stood with folded hands, his eyes full of tears, and Lord Ramchandra bathed Bharat with tears while embracing him with both arms for a long time. Accompanied by Mother Sita and Lakshman, Lord Ramchandra then offered his respectful obeisances unto the learned Brahmins and the elderly persons in the family. And all the citizens of Ayodhya offered their respectful obeisances unto the Lord. The citizens of Ayodhya, upon seeing their king return after a long absence, offered him flower garlands, waved their upper cloths, and danced in jubilation. O King, Lord Bharat carried Lord Ramchandra's wooden shoes. Sugriva and Vibhishan carried a whisk and an excellent fan. Hanuman carried a white umbrella. Shatrughna carried a bow and 2 quivers, and Sita Devi carried a water pot filled with water from holy places. Angada carried a sword, and Jambavan, king of the rickshaws, carried a golden shield. O King Parikshit, as the Lord sat on his airplane of flowers, with women offering him prayers and reciters chanting about his characteristics, he appeared like the moon with the stars and planets. Thereafter, having been welcomed by his brother Bharat, Lord Ramchandra entered the city of Ayodhya in the midst of a festival. When he entered the palace, he offered obeisances to all the mothers, including Kaikeyi and the other wives of Maharaj Dasarat, and especially his own mother, Kausalya. He also offered obeisances to the spiritual preceptors, such as Vashishta. Friends of his own age and younger friends worshipped him, and he returned their respectful obeisances, as did Lakshman and Mother Sita. In this way, they all entered the palace. Upon seeing their sons, the mothers of Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna immediately arose like unconscious bodies returning to consciousness. The mothers placed their sons on their laps and bathed them with tears, thus relieving themselves of the grief of long separation. The family priest or spiritual master Vashishta had Lord Ramachandra cleanly shaved, freeing him from his matted locks of hair. Then, with the cooperation of the elderly members of the family, he performed the bathing ceremony, Abhishek, for Lord Ramachandra, with the water of the 4 seas, and with other substances, just as it was performed for King Indra. Lord Ramachandra, fully bathed and his head clean shaven, dressed himself very nicely and was decorated with a garland and ornaments. Thus he shone brightly, surrounded by his brothers and wife. who were similarly dressed and ornamented. Being pleased by the full surrender and submission of Lord Bharat, Lord Ramchandra then accepted the throne of the state. He cared for the citizens exactly like a father, and the citizens, being fully engaged in their occupational duties of Varna and Ashram, accepted him as their father. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. People are very fond of the pattern of Ram Rajya. And even today, politicians sometimes form a party called Ram Rajya. But unfortunately, they have no obedience to Lord Ram. It is sometimes said that people want the kingdom of God without God. Such an aspiration, however, is never to be fulfilled. Good government can exist when the relationship between the citizens and the government is like that exemplified by Lord Ramchandra and his citizens. Lord Ramachandra ruled his kingdom exactly as a father takes care of his children, and the citizens, being obliged to the good government of Lord Ramchandra, accepted the Lord as their father. Thus the relationship between the citizens and the government should be exactly like that between father and son. When the sons in a family are well trained, they are obedient to the father and mother. And when the father is well qualified, he takes good care of the children. As indicated here by the words, Swadharam Niratha Varnashram Gunan Bhatha. The people were good citizens because they accepted the institution of Varna and Ashram, which arranges society in the Varna divisions of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the Ashram divisions of Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. This is actual human civilization. People must be trained according to the different varnashram occupational duties. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:13, Chatur Varnam Mayastristam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. The four varnas must be established according to varying qualities and work. The first principle for good government is that it must institute this varnashram system. The purpose of varnashram is to enable people to become God conscious. Varnashrama charavata purushena para puman vishnur aradyate. The entire varnashram scheme is intended to enable people to become Vaishnavas. Vishnur asya devata. When people worship Lord Vishnu as the Supreme Lord, they become Vaishnavas. Thus people should be trained to become Vaishnavas through the system of Varna and Ashram, as they were during the reign of Lord Ramchandra, when everyone was fully trained to follow the Varnashram principles. Simply enforcing laws and ordinances cannot make the citizens obedient and lawful. That is impossible. Throughout the entire world, there are so many states, legislative assemblies, and parliaments, but still the citizens are rogues and thieves. Good citizenship, therefore, cannot be enforced. The citizens must be trained. as there are schools and colleges to train students to become chemical engineers, lawyers, or specialists in many other departments of knowledge, there must be schools and colleges to train students to become Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprastas, and Sannyasis. This will provide the preliminary condition for good citizenship. Varnashram Gunanvita. Generally speaking, if the king or president is a Rajarishi, Rajarshi, the relationship between the citizens and the chief executive will be clear, and there will be no possibility of disruption in the state, because the number of thieves and rogues will decrease. In Kali Yuga, however, because the Varnashram system is neglected, people are generally thieves and rogues. In the system of democracy, such thieves and rogues naturally collect money from other thieves and rogues, and thus there is chaos in every government and no one is happy. But here, the example of good government is to be found in the reign of Lord Ramchandra. If people follow this example, there would be good government all over the world. Om Gyantimidandasya Gyananjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Militham Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyate Shatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama 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 Hari Hari. Hare Krishna. Thank you for this opportunity to serve you. Today we have read from 20 verses of Canto 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 10. This chapter is entitled The Pastimes of Lord Ramchandra. At the beginning of this chapter, Shukadev Goswami is describing to Parikshit Maharaj the dynasty of the Raghus, or the solar dynasty. He speaks of Maharaj Katvanga and so many other great personalities, and then tells of the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramchandra, with his three brothers, Bharat, Lakshman, and Shatrughna. Valmiki Muni's Ramayana is about 24,000 verses. Now, by the time this 9th canto, which is being spoken, Parikshit Maharaj doesn't have so much time left to live in his particular body on earth on the bank of the Ganges. So right at the beginning, Shukadev Goswami describes that he's going to explain very briefly, because he told Parikshit, you already know the story. And he's explaining the very essence of Ram's Leela. In today's purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining, after everything has happened, when Ram became the king, what a perfect arranged government he had. Not simply because of the laws and legislations, but because people were trained properly. From a spiritual perspective, education and training are very much the same. Training means practical, applied education. Teaching people the values and the tools by which they can perform their particular service according to their varnas and ashrams, and teaching them how to apply those principles to their lives. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about 2 types of knowledge, Gyan and Vigyan. There is theoretical knowledge and realized knowledge. On a spiritual level, the whole purpose of all theoretical knowledge is for self-realization. When we apply the knowledge that we're given, then we get realization. Knowledge is something like a map. You can have a wonderful, perfect map, and you can have it totally memorized of everything you're supposed to do at every step of your journey. But unless you go on your journey and follow the map, then the map is useless. It doesn't get you anywhere. So all knowledge, all education is meant to bring us to something. Ultimately, the whole varnashram system is to train people, to educate people in such a way that they're responsible, they're compassionate, they have the highest integrity, they respect and honor each other's value in what they're doing, like different parts of the body respect and work together with every other part of the body, the heart and the lungs and the brain and the kidneys and the pancreas and the toes. But Daivi Varnashram means it's all done for a purpose. Atapumbir dvijastreshtas varnashrama vibhagasha shvanushtatasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritosha. The only success, true success, of following the principles of life, and specifically the varnashram duties that a person has, is to please Lord Hari. If Krishna is pleased, we are successful. If Krishna is not pleased, it doesn't matter what everybody else or anybody else may think. It doesn't matter what we acquire or what we achieve. We were speaking the other day, in Ram's Leela, he revealed these truths in practical ways. Jatayu, that great vulture-type bird, He fought to rescue Sita. His wings were cut. He was killed by Ravana. And Ravana stole Sita away. But Ramchandra was so grateful that he tried so hard, and Sita was so grateful. Sita embraced him. Ram embraced him and cried and performed his last rites and said, Jatayu, today you will go back to Godhead, the ultimate spiritual perfection. Hanuman also fought to rescue Sita, and he won. And Ram embraced Hanuman and said, I have no way to repay you. All I could do is give you myself. With the same love, with the same gratitude, with the same pleasure, Ram embraced the dying body of Jatayu, who was defeated, and the victorious body of Hanuman. They both achieved the same perfection, not because of the external results, but because of their intent and the surrender in which they expressed their intent. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Yad Yadacharati Strestas, that what great people do, common people follow. And here Srila Prabhupada is explaining in this purport, if there's true leadership, then people will have faith to follow. Example is most important. Within all great spiritual traditions, the leaders who really establish the movement are called acharyas. Acharya means one who leads by example. There is the book Bhagavatam and the person Bhagavatam. We get all knowledge of how to achieve love for Krishna through the Srimad Bhagavatam. But we can't really understand how to apply it in our life unless we hear from, unless we get faith and hope and direction from those who actually live it, the person Bhagavatams. So we don't have much time because we read 20 verses and 2-page purport. But what we have just read, that Shukadev Goswami and Srila Prabhupada have given us, is such a rich example of how on a international level, on a national level, on a local level, on a family level, and on a personal level, we can actually gain entrance into this higher realm of knowledge and realization. It's not that Lord Ram demanded everyone to accept him as a father. It's that Ram, from his heart, he cared for his citizens and loved them as his children. So they naturally reciprocated by loving him as a father. In other words, as Srila Prabhupada explains, he did not demand respect. He commanded respect. He really cared. We read about Maharaj Shivi, how he was willing to sacrifice his life to protect a pigeon. Now that sounds kind of strange, but the reality is that little gesture, if he just told that hawk, we all know the story, oh, okay, you eat the pigeon, it's just a pigeon, no one would have ever heard about it. No one would have blamed him. The hawk wouldn't have gone on internet and said, he let me eat a pigeon. It was a small thing. But that small thing, even hundreds and thousands, millions of years later, is a guiding light for all leadership. And during his time, when people saw that little thing happen, he cares. He really cares about all of us, the least of us. And they would do whatever he wanted. They were obedient because they were grateful. Lord Ramchandra showed by his example he had no attachment to position or power. He had attachment to Dharma, to integrity. And his Dharma and integrity was based on love. He loved his father. His father would be disgraced and discredited if he did not go to the forest. And interestingly, even his father was begging him, don't go. Let me be disgraced. Let me be discredited. But don't go. And so many others were saying the same thing, except Kaikeyi. But he came to this world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, especially as Ramchandra, to teach by his example. There's a higher principle, even than being a king. How many people in this world will compromise and go through all sorts of whatever has to be done to get some political position or some position of power, whether it's in finance or industry or politics or even spiritual movements. But Ramchandra, he had it all. For the sake of a higher principle, he left. And leaving was quite extreme. But this is what he was obliged to do, to follow his heart in this way. He was leaving the most beautiful, palatial, opulent, and comfortable palace on earth to live in the forest, wearing tree bark, matted hair, eating just whatever roots they could find in the ground. And Sita, his beloved wife and consort, she was willing to go with him. Yes, she was illustrating the highest dharma of a wife to a husband to a wife. It's there. But it was done with love. From her heart, she wanted to go with him. She begged to go with him. She had to put on tree bark. She had to mat her hair. She had to spend 14 years eating roots under the ground. Think about it. If you were in that role. And Lakshman, the brother, he would have it no other way to go with. Here is an example of people willing to give up all prestige, all power, all wealth, all comforts, all safeties for a higher principle of setting an example and of love. Ram did it out of his love for his father, out of his love for his dynasty, out of love for his citizens. And he set an example out of his love for all living beings for all time to come. And what an example. And how people were inspired, how people were grateful, how people loved him. We find all of his devotees that are being discussed by Shukadev Goswami, they had the same spirit. Maharaj Guha, He was the king of a forest tribe. And when Ram came, Maharaj Guha offered the entire kingdom to him without reservation. And he wasn't just doing it as formality. From his heart, he was begging Ram, you stay here. You take everything I have along with all the citizens of my kingdom. I am your obedient servant. He wasn't surrendering out of defeat. He was surrendering out of love, Sharanagati. He brought a big feast. He was going to arrange a wonderful place for Ram and Sita and Lakshman to stay. But Ram only took some roots. And he would only sleep on some straw on the ground. Because he was actually detached from anything except the example he was showing out of true love and compassion for others. They went to Chitrakoot. Ram, Sita, Lakshman, what was their great joy in life? Humbly serving the great sages and rishis and yogis that were residing on the banks of the Mandakini Ganga, a holy river. Sita would collect flowers and bring them for their puja. Ram would perform so many chores just to serve them and please them. Here's the king of the world. Here's the supreme personality of Godhead, Param Brahma. And he's showing by his example, not just like an actor, but from his heart, he just loves to serve the devotees. And while they were living in Nasik is the place. Well, actually in Chitrakoot, Bharat, when Bharat came home, his mother was so happy and proud to give him the good news that Bharat, our desires have been completely realized. Ram has been banished to the forest for 14 years. Sita and Lakshman went with him. We have no competition. Your father Dasarath is dead. Now there's no impediment to you being the king of our whole dynasty. It couldn't have been better. That was her understanding. Bharat was outraged. I will never let this evil plot of yours ever be realized. Kaushalya, he went to beg forgiveness from her for what his mother did, and Kaushalya, she said, Bharat, congratulations. What you want, you have. You can be the king. But what about Ram? And what about Sita? And what about the heartbreak of all those who loved him? But yes, sit on the throne, it's yours. She had no idea that he didn't have anything to do with that conspiracy. He cried. And he explained his heart. And then he proclaimed to all the sages and rishis and ministers and to all the citizens of Ayodhya, I will go to the forest and I will live that 14 years in exile, and Ram will come back to be king. And everybody celebrated. So he went to Chitrakoot. And if you read Ramayana, there's pages and pages and pages of dialogue of the argument between Bharat and Ramchandra. It's the most loving argument you'll ever hear. Well, one of them. The gopis and Krishna argue too. But here we find Bharat is begging Ram to return. And Ram is begging Bharat to be the king. Have you ever heard of such a thing in politics in the world today? Bharat is saying, I'm the king, but I don't want to be the king. You be the king. You're the natural king. Come home. We have brought all the coronation ingredients. Vashishta Muni has it. We will coronate you right now and have a royal reception, and all of the chariots and all of the militaries and all of the citizens have come to escort you back to your throne in your palace in Ayodhya. And Ram said, no, I'm staying here in my little straw hut. You, Bharat, it is you must be the king and take care of these citizens. And so many other rishis and ministers and sages were trying to convince Ram. So he had every excuse to go back. But he stayed. And what is Bharat's example? Now he has every excuse. One of the final messages that Ram gave to Bharat, forgive your mother, Kaikeyi. Please, my mother has a completely broken heart because I'm in the forest. Please take care of her on my behalf. And please forgive and give your love to Kaikeyi, your own mother. Whatever she may have done, it was only due to the fog of illusion. And take care of all the citizens. Bharat told Ram, please step on these wooden sandals. And Ram did so. And Bharat carried those sandals on his head back to Ayodhya and put the sandals on the throne. And where did Bharat live? He ruled the kingdom for 14 years in the same mood as Ram would, as a father to children. He did his duty because it was Ram's order. But he accepted none of the pleasing benefits. Have any of you been to Nandigram? Just outside of Ayodhya. It's a forest. It's still there. I've gone several times. It's a very special place. In a secluded forest, Bharat lived in a little straw hut, the same as Ram was living, even simpler. He only wore tree bark. He matted his hair. He slept on the ground. Ram and Sita were eating fruits and roots. Sukadev Goswami is explaining in these verses that Bharat was eating barley soaked in cow urine. How would you like that for your Sunday feast? Try it. It's really simple. Every day for 14 years. Now, cow urine is really purifying for many things, but it doesn't taste very good if that was his example. Selfless. He was really following in the footsteps of Ram out of love. And all the citizens loved Bharat just like they loved Ram, because he was not demanding their love, because he was giving so much love. They naturally loved him. And it was that love, that compassion, and that example of, because love is selfless sacrifice, because of the selfless sacrifice of Ram's example and Bharat's interactions with the citizens, that was what empowered them to really want to please him, to overcome their weaknesses, to overcome their greed and their lust and their envy and their anger. It was the example that they really were enthusiastic to follow Varnashram systems. Srila Prabhupada writes here, you can't do it by legislation or just making laws. People have to be inspired. Daivi Varnashram is where the leaders, out of love for Vishnu, they are providing this wonderful education and setting an example. And we have Vibhishan. What an example he is. He's Ravana's brother. He has all kinds of mystical powers. If you really study Vibhishan, it's an incredible inspiration. He's a Rakshasa, born from the same father, Vishrada, as Ravana and Suparnika and Kumbhakarna. What a family. And they all went to perform tapasya together. And Kumbhakarna just wanted to devour the universe, and Ravana wanted heads and hands and undefeatable prowess and all mystic powers and knowledge. And Suparnika just wanted all kinds of incredible control over others. And the same Lord Brahma gave the same opportunity for benedictions to Vibhishan. And he just wanted to always remember his beloved Lord and be a servant of the servant. So Vibhishan actually loved his brother Ravana. He definitely didn't like his behavior. Vibhishan was a very, very exemplary grihasta, Kshatriya grihasta. He followed Varnashram very nicely. And Ravana, he was kidnapping so many beautiful ladies, and he was conquering, and he was plundering, and he exploited his own brother Kuvera and defeated him and stole away from him the best things he had. He was heartless. And we read in Ramayana how Vibhishan was always trying to give Ravana good advice. Give back Sita. You've just seen what Hanuman has done. One person. One devotee of Ram has destroyed your whole Sri Lanka kingdom. And you had no control over him. What to speak of a whole army of Hanumans? They're about to come here. And what to speak of Ram, who's the power behind all of them? Everything will be vanquished. Just give back Sita and be happy. We're all here to support you. He was speaking with true love and compassion and deep concern. But Ravana was so intoxicated by material attachment. You see, when you have material attachment connected to your false ego, you can't see or hear anything properly. He considered his best well-wisher and loving friend and brother in the whole world, he considered him his enemy. Because he was saying what he didn't want to hear. And he flew in an outrage and told Vibhishan, I should kill you, but because you're my brother, I'm not going to kill you. But he started blaspheming Vibhishan. And when Vibhishan saw that there was nothing he could do about it, what did he do? He left with nothing. He left his beautiful home. He left all his security. He left even his family. He left everything to go to serve Ram. And what was his powers? In the Sundarkanda of Ramayana, we read about Hanuman's jumping across the ocean 800 miles. And that's one of the most celebrated, incredible feats of Hanuman. He jumped over the ocean, and there were so many obstacles that represent so many obstacles on the spiritual path that he crossed over. Well, Vibhishan was so mystically empowered that he and his 3 ministers, they effortlessly just floated over the ocean. They didn't even jump. They just rose they just rose up and stood very stately, and within a really short amount of time they appeared on the other side of the ocean. He was gigantic too. That's Vibhishan. And everybody recognizes as Ravana's brother. Let's kill him. But how do you kill somebody who's just floating in the sky, who's gigantic? So he said, I want to see Ram. I want to surrender to Ram. So Sugriva went and told Ram with the others. Ram said, what do you think we should do? They said, we must kill him. We must. Sugriva said, he's Ravana's brother. He may have had some conflict with his brother, but blood is very, very sacred in the Rakshasa race, and when we can't let him into our intimate circle. We should either kill him or we should imprison him. And they all more or less agreed. And Ram said to Hanuman, what do you think? And Hanuman said, I saw his face, and he looks really sincere. We should accept him as our own brother wholeheartedly with full faith. And Ram said, yes, we will do that. And it was at that time that Sugriva really became, because he's the general of the army, he has to deal with everything. And Sugriva was really upset. And he expressed it. And then Ram spoke that famous verse that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself cited. That I declare before all of you, it is my vow, anyone who even once sincerely says, my Lord, I am yours, I will give that person protection forever. Even if Ravana, my arch enemy, if he were to come and surrender, I would accept him as my own and give him all protection forever. Bring Vibhishan. Vibhishan sacrificed everything in his life to be with Ram. And he knew by doing so, Ravana was really going to be furious with him. And Ravana is not the kind of person you really want furious with you. Because if he is, that means Indrajit and the whole army. And Ram was so pleased with Vibhishan. There's a place. Have you been to Rameshwaram? There's a place near Rameshwaram, just in the, you have to go over a little bridge of land to a little island in the sea, and there's a temple there. And you know what happened there? Before they went to Sri Lanka, Ram took just regular old salted seawater in his hands with Lakshman and poured it over Vibhishan's head. And in doing so, he coronated Vibhishan the king of Lanka. Now Ravana is living there. He has millions of soldiers. Usually an abhishek is something really elaborate when you're going to coronate a king. You know, there's Panchagavya and Panchamrita, and there's Brahmins chanting mantras and slokas, and there's bands playing, and there's flowers, and there's jewels, and coronating a king is a big thing. Ram did it on a little lonely island with some salt water. He poured it on his head and said, now you are the king of Sri Lanka. And then when they fought the battle, If you read the Battle of Ramayana, there were times when Indrajit, or when the son of Ravana, or when Ravana himself saw Vibhishan, they really seriously, passionately, aggressively attacked to kill him, because he was really the enemy. He was the traitor. He was their brother who took the other side. They hated Vibhishan, but Ram always protected him. And in yesterday's verse, His Holiness Navayogananda Swami Maharaj spoke yesterday from it. Shukadev Goswami tells, and Prabhupada explains it in more detail, when Ravana was finally liberated from his ignorance and his body, when he was dead, Ram told Vibhishan, you should do the last rites. Pray to free him from all of his offenses, all of his sins. Help him to go back to Godhead. And Vibhishan said, how, Ravana, he stole Sita. He hated you, my beloved Lord. He hated you. He wanted to kill you. He was envious of you. He tried to kill me. He insulted me. He tried to kill Hanuman. He was so evil. He was raping innocent women. He was kidnapping the daughters of kings. He was drinking human blood. You want me to do the last rites for him? And Ram said, you should forgive him. He's dead now. You're his brother. Help his soul go back to Godhead. That was Ram's order to Vibhishan. And Vibhishan saw that Ram actually, even Ravana, he loved the soul of Ravana. And Vibhishan performed the last rites in the presence of Lord Ram. We just read in these verses how Sita was brought back to Ram. What was her example? She was being threatened with death. Ravana was going to make her the queen of all queens. Mandodari and all of the other queens of Ravana would have all been the maidservants of Sita. The greatest power and wealth in the universe, Ravana wanted to bestow on Sita. And it wasn't, actually Ravana, when he wanted to fight in the war, he would manifest 10 heads and 10 arms. But otherwise, he was actually an amazing, charismatic, beautiful person. He could change his form any way he wanted. He was incredible. And he was promising Sita everything. Live in my palace, have all the treasures of the heavens, and if you don't, you just sit here under this tree in poverty, starving, and ultimately I'm just going to cut your body to pieces and eat your flesh and drink your blood. Those are your two choices. Either enjoy the highest pleasures in the universe or suffer and die. That was the ultimatum he gave her. For her, suffering and dying was billions and trillions of times greater pleasure than enjoying what he had to offer. Why? Because in her heart, she was just trying to please Ram. And here, after almost a year of separation, Sita is reunited with Ram. And the 14 years of exile is over. And I'm going to end with one little story, because I'm over time. Ram was so detached The highest detachment is attachment. When we're really attached to Krishna, when we're really attached to Dharma, the highest Dharma, loving devotional service, then we're detached from everything else. Param dristva nivartate, vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehena rasavarajam rasopyasya param dristva nivartate. Because we're experiencing something so much higher than anything of this temporary world. Ram told Hanuman that now the exile is over. But I don't want to take the kingdom of Ayodhya if Bharat has even a trace of attachment to being the king. He's been serving as the king for 14 years, and even the greatest, most renowned sages, they can easily get attached to something like that. Hanuman, you are superbly expert at judging human consciousness. You go ahead of me. Jump. They were at Rameshwaram. You, Dhanushkoti, you jump to Ayodhya, to Nandigram, where he's staying. And you tell Bharat that the exile is complete and I'm returning. And you analyze if there is even the slightest particle of a single drop of attachment he has for continuing as the king, then I will let him be the king. I don't want to be the king. Either I'll return to the forest or I'll just come back and be his brother and assistant. And he wasn't saying this as a test. He meant it. That was the love between them. If there's a trace of desire he has to continue doing what he's doing, Ram said, I will honor that. That was very moving for Hanuman. But he had a service. And he went to Nandigram, and there was Bharat with his matted hair, emaciated, thin from just eating so simple, wearing tree bark. Tree bark is really scratchy. I've tried it. It's not comfortable clothes. It's kind of a higher taste if you're an ascetic. But he wore it for 14 years. And he lived in the jungle. And whatever glory came to the king, Bharat gave it to Ram's wooden shoes that were sitting on the throne. Hanuman was doing Ram's will. He was going to scrutinizingly look into the mind and the heart of Bharat. He said, Ram is coming. When Bharat heard that, his heart exploded with ecstatic, loving joy. He was weeping, he was crying, he was dancing, and Hanuman was watching. He was looking into through his senses, through his mind, through his heart, right to his soul, and he saw there was nothing but pure happiness and joy. And Hanuman seeing that, became so enlivened to see another devotee's pure heart that he started to dance, and they were both dancing and crying and dancing and crying and chanting Ram's name. And Bharat said, "Where is he? Where is he?" And Hanuman said, "He's coming, he's coming. Where is he? Where is he?" And Bharat sent message to the rest of Ayodhya, and they started preparing this beautiful reception that we're reading about today. They were decorating the roads and making beautiful flower airplane palanquins, and they were preparing the palace and preparing the coronation for his king, being the king, and everything. It was the whole citizen, everyone in Ayodhya was celebrating Rama's returning. This is the concept of Diwali, welcoming Ram back, welcoming our Lord back after so many years of separation. And Bharat, he was making all the arrangements. Meanwhile, he's just looking, where is he, Hanuman? I don't see. Maybe he changes. No, he's coming, he's coming. He'll be here. Well, and a few seconds later, but where? He was so anticipating. And then that historical moment came, where Hanuman cried out in such love, "Bharat, look, there is Ram's plane coming. There he is." And they were both embracing and covering each other with their tears of joy. And when Ram came down, Bharat had his shoes. Your shoes have been ruling now here. Please wear them. Bharat bowed down to Ram, and Ram embraced him. They cried, they wept. And all the citizens of Ayodhya were celebrating, and Ram was meeting all the great ministers and all the great gurus. And he saw his mother standing up to the side, Kausalya, just weeping, looking at her son. The first glance she saw of him in 14 years. And Ram left everyone else and went to his mother and touched her feet. He bowed his head and took dust from her feet in respect, and she embraced him and bathed him with her tears. These are the examples of selfless love. This is the example of leadership. Varnashram Dharma foundationally is based on these principles of the willingness to make sacrifices to for the highest purpose, samsiddhir haritoshanam, of loving devotion to the Supreme Lord. This is how Ram loved all of his citizens as a father. This is how all the leaders that we're talking about, how they followed in his footsteps. Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya. In one sense, that could be an introduction to begin a class. So much love and surrender and sacrifice people made because they saw Prabhupada's example. I was speaking to Siddhanta Prabhu yesterday. Srila Prabhupada taught us the Siddhanta, the highest truths. He spoke them in his words. He wrote them in his books. But he he also lived them. And Siddhanta Prabhu's incredible contribution to our sampradaya is his getting memories from devotees and how they were affected by that, by Prabhupada's living example of prema bhakti. We see devotees, Giriraj Swami Maharaj. He's coming tomorrow for Amala Bhakta Prabhu's initiation. He was the son of a millionaire, a lawyer and a judge. But he saw Prabhupada's love and sacrifice for humanity, and he wanted to be a part of that. He went to India and was living in the most difficult situations, like Bharat. But he was happy. He wouldn't trade it for anything. Prabhupada trained him. Prabhupada educated him with knowledge and with example. We have faith and knowledge when we see examples, and we understand how to apply it. Just day before yesterday, I was with Shyam Sundar Prabhu from Salem, Oregon. His father was a lawyer too, top lawyer in the whole city. Wealthy, powerful. Shyam Sundar and Malati Devi and Guru Das Prabhu and Yamuna Devi and Mukunda Maharaj and Janaki Devi. They started a temple in San Francisco. They went to London with nothing and started a temple there. And then they had just, and some of them went to India and established a society there. How did they do it all? Because they were fearless. They were willing to do everything and anything for the higher cause of reciprocating with Prabhupada's love, his compassion, and representing his teachings. $50 ago, at this day, Srila Prabhupada's still on Jaladuta. I was in Calcutta when he boarded Jaladuta for the 50th anniversary, and it seems like a really long time ago. That was August 13th. What's the date today? 15th of September? He's still on the Jaladuta. On the 17th, he finally arrives in Boston. He's still somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. This is Ram Rajya. This is the spirit that Ram has given. And from a spiritual perspective, from a political perspective, on every level, when this spiritual foundation of Ram's example is there, based on love, based on compassion, based on truth, people believe, people feel empowered, and people can follow. And that's the type of Daivi Varnashram Dharma Prabhupada is speaking of here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.